Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you. I know we have people from all over the world, which I'm seeing here on the chat bar. Welcome and happy World Kindness Day. It is World Kindness Day, and we are so happy to be here with you to practice kindness on this day especially. And we have some very special guests, dear friends and teachers, who I will introduce very shortly, being Sharon Salzberg and Shelly Tygielski. I will introduce them in a second a little bit more fully as we wait here for folks to arrive. It's wonderful to have you join us. Thank you for making the time, whatever time zone you find yourself in. I see we have people from all over the world, literally, from Saudi Arabia to Malta to Germany to the UK, all over the US, South America. So wonderful that you could join us. I probably missed a few folks, but we're just really happy that you're here. If you've registered in being here, obviously you will get a recording of this session, as will all participants who registered. So welcome everybody, and thank you for letting us know where you're from as we begin to practice kindness and celebrate World Kindness Day together. So the very first word here is practice. And so we actually want to invite everyone on this call to a very brief practice that we have here at the Institute. We call this a minute to arrive. And this is really just a way to kind of ground yourself, gather your attention and your intention as we begin this session together. So I just invite you, as you are, if you'd like, you can close your eyes. You're welcome to keep them open, perhaps softening the visual field. Let's take a minute to arrive together. And just allowing our attention to perhaps notice the felt experience of your body in this moment. And then turning the attention towards the heart space, checking in with yourself. How are you doing in this moment? How are you feeling? With a kind, gentle attention, without judgment, but with this quality of curiosity and kindness, just noticing how you're feeling in this moment. And then finally, perhaps turning your attention to your mind. How's that going in this moment for you? And I'd invite a moment to connect with your intention for being here. Why are you here? What brought you here to this moment and this practice together? Sensing into that intention for a moment of whatever it was that brought you here. And at your own pace, taking one last slightly deeper breath. And exhaling as you open your eyes if they're closed, and rejoining the group here. So thank you for being here again. Thank you for your practice. I'm so excited today to introduce our very special guests, which I'll do now. First we have Sharon Salzberg, who I will have to say is one of my greatest teachers, as well as a friend and a collaborator. And if you don't know Sharon, Sharon is perhaps one of the most renowned and beloved mindfulness teachers in the world today, especially in the Western world. Sharon has an incredible story where I think early in life, Sharon, there was this realization of the power of meditation to overcome personal suffering. And in 1971, Sharon went to Bodh Gaya, India, and attended her first meditation course, spent several years studying with incredibly highly respected meditation masters and teachers there, and then returned to the United States in 1974 and began teaching Vipassana or insight meditation. In 1976, she established, together with Joseph Goldstein and Jack Kornfield, the Insight Meditation Society in Barre, Massachusetts. I know we have some folks on this call that are from near there, just around the corner I saw. The Insight Meditation Society, if you're not familiar with it, now ranks as one of the most highly respected meditation centers in the Western world, and one of the most prominent. It offers non-sectarian retreats and opportunity settings, as well as Buddhist studies for participants from widely diverse backgrounds. And then Sharon is also the author of 11 books, including Loving Kindness, the New York Times bestseller book, Real Happiness in 2017, Real Love, The Art of Mindful Connection. And then her newest book, which just came out a few months ago, is called Real Change, this book. And I will be talking about this book, Sharon, shortly. But I personally have to say this book has been the single most important book I have read all year, and perhaps in many years. So I'm not just saying that to be polite, by the way. This book really, really grabbed me. So we're going to have to perhaps talk about some passages from here as well. And then I also just want to share, Sharon also has a wonderful podcast called the Metta Hour, METTA Hour, featuring over 100 interviews with mindfulness teachers and top leaders and voices in the mindfulness movement. And her teachings and writings communicate mindfulness and compassion powerfully towards and incline us all towards real change for an audience of worldwide practitioners. So Sharon, welcome. So wonderful to have you.
Thank you so much. Hello, we're having confetti all over the screen. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's a celebration, right? Celebrating World Kindness Day. So welcome.
It's fantastic. And thank you. And I want to celebrate you, and it's so nice to see you again, and search inside yourself for celebrating kindness, because I've often felt and said and written how kindness can be portrayed as a kind of secondary virtue. Like, if you can't be brave, you can't be brilliant, you can't be wonderful. It's like, okay, be kind. It's nice. It's not great, but it's good. And yet it is of greatness. I think when we really look at that quality, there's so many elements to it where, despite the common portrayal as kindness being something weak and a little submissive and meek and too compliant in some way, it really is a power. And it empowers many of our actions. And you kind of have to dare to be different to appreciate kindness. There's a certain audacity to it because of the message that often comes through. And one of the things about kindness that I've seen in my own experience and, teaching Lo these many years, is that it kind of unites us or reunites us with a place in ourselves that is intact, that's whole, that is sufficient, or even a sense of inner abundance. That's where the best kind of generosity, or generosity of the spirit, which is what kindness is, that's where it comes from. Unlike our normal, perhaps, way of seeing ourselves as deficient and somewhat not enough, and anything we might do is not enough. It's too meager. It can't possibly deal with, say, an intractable system or seemingly intractable system, or the massive amount of suffering we might see somewhere or even be experiencing somewhere ourselves. And so we neglect it. We think, well, it can't do anything. But if we can do like the one thing, it may seem small, it may seem not enough, but if we can do it, then we are back in touch with something inside of ourselves that is enough, that has a sense of agency, that can go on. And actually, it's the power of connection. And the reason that kindness is powerful is because it certainly reunites us with that place inside ourselves. And it reflects the basic truth of existence, which is that we are all connected, that our lives are interconnected. One of my favorite things to do, if I go into an office or when I went into an office physically, but I can do it now too, this way, or an organization to teach, is to say, how many other people need to be doing their job well for you to be able to do your job well? Because right in that moment, that sense of isolation and um, needless kind of competition and the sense that it's all up to me and I can't count on anybody, and it just evaporates and you realize, oh, no matter how much I need to strive for excellence or to be a leader or whatever it is, I am resting on this platform of connection. That's actually the truth of life. And so when I say an action, it may be um, an act of generosity. It may be thanking somebody, acknowledging them. It may be listening in a way where we're not like intensely moved to listen. It may be, often it is, resting on a foundation of kind of acknowledgement, which for me comes in the form of loving kindness meditation. It's sort of the foundation that I rest on in order to then be able to act in some way that feels genuine and it feels like it is reuniting me with that place and honoring the truth of connection. So I'd like us to do some loving kindness meditation now
Beautiful.
together. If you can just sit comfortably, close your eyes or not. If you're driving, please not. Um, and however you feel most at ease, your eyes can also be open, like a little bit open. You could find a spot to rest your gaze, let it go. And just, again, bring your attention into your body. There are many ways of doing this practice. The way I usually teach has to do with the silent repetition of certain phrases, so that the phrases are the way we are paying attention differently. Thinking about ourselves, for example, instead of going through the list of our flaws again, one more time, we're going to wish ourselves well. It's gift giving, it's offering, it's generosity of the spirit. We may think of somebody who's helped us, and I'll guide us through it. Someone we usually don't bother thinking about anymore, and we bring them to mind and we wish them well. So even though they are words, which means they are imperfect, they are actually the conduit for this way of paying attention differently, and so they serve us. Common phrases, beginning with ourselves, are things like, may I be safe, be happy, be healthy, live with ease. Live with ease means the things of day-to-day life, like livelihood and family, may not be such a struggle. May I live with ease. May I be safe, be happy, be healthy, live with ease. And people often say to me, who am I asking? Well, we're not asking anybody anything. We're gift giving, we're offering. You don't have to try to force or manufacture a special feeling at all. The power of this practice comes from the complete wholehearted gathering of all of our attention behind one phrase at a time. And when you find your attention has wandered, you've gotten lost in thought, or spun out in fantasy, truly don't worry about it. Once you realize that, see if you can gently let go and just come back. Just start again. And if you have to do that over and over again, that's fine. May I be safe, be happy, be healthy, live with ease. And see if you can bring to mind someone who's helped you in some way. Maybe they've helped you directly, they've helped pick you up when you've fallen down, or maybe you've never met them. They've inspired you from afar. This is someone who, when you think of them, you smile. They just lift your spirits. It could be an adult, could be a child, could be a pet. Who makes you smile? And if someone comes to mind, you can bring them here. Get an image of them or say their name to yourself. Get a feeling for their presence and offer the phrases of loving kindness to them. May you be safe, be happy, be healthy, live with ease. Someone you know who's struggling right now, let's bring them here. You can get an image of them, say their name to yourself, get a feeling for their presence, and see what happens as you offer the phrases of loving kindness to them. May you be safe, be happy, be healthy, live with ease. We're going to have a gathering. Just see who comes to mind. Friends, family, colleagues, puppies, whomever. And offer loving kindness to the collective. May you be safe, be happy, be healthy, live with ease. And then an acknowledgement of our connection with the boundlessness of life, all beings everywhere. May all beings be safe, be happy, be healthy, live with ease. All people, all creatures, all those in existence, near and far, known and unknown. May all beings be safe, be happy, be healthy, live with ease. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes or lift your gaze and we'll end the meditation. So thank you. All beings, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sharon. I'm sure that's certainly true for me. I can sense the upwelling of kindness and perhaps compassion. So I'd love to invite some conversation now amongst us, but also from the people who are online. If you would like to make any comments, share any reflections, have any questions, please send them via chat. And as a way to kind of help move us into that conversation, I also did want to share something from Sharon's book, which, as I've mentioned, for me was super powerful. It's one of the most important books I've read in a while. And I really appreciate, Sharon, how you so clearly and powerfully talked about the benefits of this practice to incline us towards real change, as the title of the book says. The practices of mindfulness and loving kindness and meditation work too. And then you have these bullet points, which were so striking to me, which you can all read here. But everything, the benefits from resilience to making better choices aligned with our values, to navigating frustration and loss, the experience of that, and healing, in a way that, and you use this expression often, which is onward leading, which is, it's always really just landed so powerfully with me, which is the onward leading ways that we can continue to then, as you see here as well, focus our energies, join forces. And then importantly, the second to last bullet point, you had something there that also jumped out, which was to work with those whose decisions and actions we work against. Because there is that in the world too. And so how do we do that with kindness and compassion and the power of connection? So this is just, I wanted to share this with everyone here. Again, if you're not familiar with the book, I can't recommend it more highly. But these insights are so powerful because they do incline us towards change. So thank you for sharing these. And if there's anything you want to explicate there, as well as we see on the chat a few things. So I don't know if you have any reflections on these, Sharon, or if you prefer I just go straight to the questions.
Yeah, these are interesting to see, isn't it? Always the case. Because I think, it goes back a lot to what I was saying. I think being able to understand these benefits, which are true, they're genuine, also relies on having a very different sense of kindness, that it's not a force that, it's something that rests in our hearts, and the action we take in any moment is hopefully based on wisdom. The way it's expressed in any moment is based on discernment, on awareness, on mindfulness in a bigger context, and cultural understanding, all kinds of things. So to be deepening and developing greater kindness does not mean that we are then only going to say yes, or we're going to cease to, really strive to make a difference in a powerful way. We're not going to lose all sense of boundaries or just give in. It's much more delicate than that as an understanding. Um, and that's what it's really pointing to, that we are working toward this state which is really inner freedom, and then the way it will manifest will be based on a lot of other understandings. And that's another way I appreciate the work of something like Search Inside Yourself, to help us cultivate a kind of discernment and emotional intelligence, so to speak, so that the ways that these forces can be manifested can be much more filled with awareness. I'll also say that in all my years of teaching, there are probably two main controversies that I've encountered. One is this, that it's a weakness and not a strength, and the other is the idea that it can be cultivated, which seems weird to us somehow often in the West, that you've either got it or you don't. It's like a gift, and we don't think about the actual ability we have to cultivate, to strengthen this. And that's another reason why I really honor the meditation.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. And there's some really powerful questions and comments flooding in. So I'd perhaps like to share a few of those. And there's one from Jane about the people I work against, people who are very, very different from worldview. Try as I might, I truly do not wish them kindness. I can see that if they experience receiving kindness, they might not need to be so evil, but I just can't. It's hard, right? Um, so what about that, Sharon? How in this world where there seems so much division, you speak to it here in this book, by the way, how do we bridge that?
Well, it is hard. I mean, I think we have to acknowledge that. And uh, a lot of it will be based, I think, on a really deep and ongoing exploration for ourselves of what kindness really means, and reminding ourselves that it doesn't mean uh, wiping out all sense of right and wrong or principle or justice or whatever. And I think, and even a kind of community reminder is not a bad thing either, to have that reflected back now and then. Also, I found, just in terms of the meditation, that it's a practice that invites a lot of creativity. Um, when teaching loving kindness to people, I've seen that phrases may really need to change, that it's impossible sometimes to wish someone happiness. But I've seen, even in very difficult situations, um, people are able to say, and they come up with these phrases themselves, may you be free of hatred. That's something that they genuinely can say. I also say it's not a coercive activity. It's like you don't have to force yourself, you know, uh, but actions have consequences, and it seems pretty clear that to use that phrase often attributed to Albert Einstein. I say often because in wanting to quote it for a previous book, it was difficult to find out exactly when he said it, though apparently he did say it, which is something like, the problems we face cannot be solved with the same level of thinking that created them. So it's like an invitation to ourselves. It's like, how bold can I get, in the direction of kindness? Usually we think of getting bold in the direction of rigidity, or vengeance or something. But it's really making that experiment if you want to. It's not forcing yourself to.
Right. Beautiful. Yeah, in this book, by the way, I'm just going to have to read a small passage here, if you don't mind, because I think it speaks exactly to this, where you write in the very first chapter, which is called Change. Change is possible. Change is possible. In these times we live in now, where there is great division all around the world, people are often highlighting differences rather than similarities, alienation rather than interconnection. Hatred feels like it's surging, and the scaffolding that has held our communities up, the altruism taught by faith-based traditions, the commitment to good-heartedness in secular traditions, and a vision of the body politic's common good feels like it becomes very shaky. And then just to skip to a slightly different section that then talks about why these kindness and compassion practices and mindfulness practices are so important. The conditions of our times require a robust response that reflects our inner values writ large as we look at the legacy of our societies, our priorities, our choices. So in many ways, these practices allow us to take the action, allow us to bridge those divides, it sounds like.
Yeah. I would also say, maybe we shouldn't look for any emotion so much and more, it might be a worldview. It might just be a sense of inclusion. It's like one of my favorite examples of loving kindness is actually, I was riding in a car with a friend and we were stuck in this terrible, horrible, awful traffic, complaining bitterly about it the entire time. And then my friend turned to me and said, well, we're the traffic too. And I thought, oh, right. Like, what an interesting sense. Like, it's my road. Like, I'm in the center of the universe. It's my road. You are all interlopers, slowing me down. You're in my way. But what if that sense of kind of self and other drops, and then we're all the traffic? And we've got a problem to solve because there's traffic. It's not like we just lay back and there's nothing to do. But it's such a different sensibility than it's all you're in my way and I own the earth. And that's, I think, what we need to work toward.
Yeah, thank you. And I just wanted to respond to one other question that's been asked a few times. And I'm just going to flash this up on the screen about the benefits in, for example, organizations, where sometimes top management, this question from Johanna, think that showing compassion and connection with emotions makes them vulnerable and weak. What can we say about that? And I think it's the very answer you just gave, which is from me to we. Is so powerful.
And also the equation of vulnerability and weakness is an interesting one.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Narrative, perhaps a narrative that causes us to when we practice in this way, but there's actually a tangible outcome. So here's a little bit of research. So you can reference this, and of course you'll get the recording so you can come back to this as well. Well, thank you, Sharon. This was the slide that was going to invite us to practice, which we just did. And we will have some other time for Q&A later as well. But I also wanted to introduce my dear friend, collaborator, mindfulness and compassion champion, Shelly Tygielski. If you don't mind, my friend, I'm going to introduce you a little bit more fully here. Shelly, the way you describe yourself in your bio in bold letters, I'm just going to read it because I think it's just so awesome, which is Shelly is a mindfulness teacher, community organizer, philanthropist, author, self-care activist, public speaker, former corporate executive, mother, wife, sister, daughter, friend, skater girl, and mind ninja. So I love those descriptions. And then more sort of formally, you spent almost 20 years in corporate America, leading in executive positions in both private and public sector companies. And then I love how you describe this. You stopped following the expected path and started following your lifelong passion, mindfulness and meditation. That's where I came to know you because in your work there, one of the things you did was you created a meditation community in Florida, South Florida, started with 12 friends, became a community of 15,000 meditating for free on Sundays on the beach in South Florida. And then also you are a peace warrior and a justice activist. Shelly has deep expertise in trauma-informed approaches to mindfulness and has worked very extensively with communities experiencing mass shootings and gun violence, including, and this is where we got to know each other, Shelly, working with the community in Parkland, Florida, in helping them build resilience after the tragedy there. And I know we have some friends from the Parkland community on the call today as well, so hello. And then also you worked with communities in Pittsburgh, Las Vegas, Aurora, Columbine, and more. Again, working with trauma-informed mindfulness and healing. And then really notably, and this is what I want to emphasize today, especially as we talk about this way that mindfulness can inform real change is that once the pandemic hit here in the United States on March 14th, Shelly started something called the Pandemic of Love. And I'll invite you to share more about that, but just if you're not familiar with it, the Pandemic of Love started as a Google form online on March 14th, where people could just simply request help and others could give help. And you tried to match people who needed help with people who were willing to give help. And hundreds of people came to that. And then over time, where we are today is that 600,000 people have been matched in the Pandemic of Love. There's 1,000 volunteers around the world and has directly exchanged nearly $40 million in donations between people who need help and those willing to give help. So an extraordinary journey, my friend, a scenic route in your career and in your journey, but amazing. And I would just want to say finally that you are writing about all of this in your upcoming book, Sit Down to Stand Up, which title I love. It's the very thing we're talking about here. And you also have a series of workshops and recorded books on self-care for turbulent times on Audible. And you just also share so many of your contemplations and lessons online for free on social media and so forth. So Shelly, welcome, my friend, and share with us some of your reflections and insights and perspectives, please.
Definitely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being here amongst my colleagues at Search Inside Yourself. I am a teacher in training. I'm not certified yet. Hopefully will be in the next month or so. But I'm excited to be, just speaking to people that I know and love. And in the company of my core teacher and friend and mentor, Sharon, of course, who honestly informs my work every single day with her life's work, and really helps to drive the fact home that we are born into love and that fear is really something that's learned. And so if we can kind of remember that and create this process of delamination, if you will, just to get rid of that fear and over that hump, we can really honestly create those human connections that she spoke so eloquently about. And, so my work and sort of the title of my forthcoming book, which is still being written, is called Sit Down to Rise Up. And the connection between sitting down in meditation and actually rising up and I'll use the term activist, but when I say activist, I don't necessarily just mean somebody who's like out on the streets protesting or, canvassing or doing anything in that sense. An act of kindness as well, like going out into the world, actually, having social consciousness inform your work in the real world, right? Taking it off the cushion, lifting it off the page, I think is so incredibly important. And one of the things that I have noticed oftentimes in communities of wellness is that there's this failure to launch, if you will. There's this, and a lot of us are familiar with this in the corporate sense, right? There's this paralysis by analysis where we are like, well, I haven't really completed doing the inner work and I don't really know enough yet. And I'm not versed enough to speak up on this topic, right? And we see this now as well, like even in circles where we're talking about anti-racism and other things that are really just coming up in our times right now. And the idea here is that, you're never going to be perfect. We're never going to know enough. We can always learn more, right? That's the beauty of being human. The idea is that if we just show up, the most important thing we can do in life is to show up. And then things sort of unfold from there. And so my meditation practice, which is steeped in loving kindness, is really, based on the fact that we talk a lot in SIY about the importance of moving from reaction to response mode, right? And of course, evolutionarily speaking, we all know here that we have this fight, flight, fear, freeze mode of operating, right? Which can save our life for sure. But what can we do if we pause and we turn inward and we really reflect on our heart centers? And then we kind of move into empathy and action. And so that's sort of, the default mode that I've been trying to operate from certainly in the last 4 years, certainly since, 2016, certainly since my community was impacted by a mass shooting, certainly, since the pandemic began in March. I was operating, Rich, from a place of despair, like a lot of people. I felt so much despair. I felt so much fear and just doubt and anxiety and really a lot of empathy for my community members who I knew were not just suffering in this moment, but were going to really suffer once, they had no income and they weren't able to feed their kids or keep their lights on. And instead of, just kind of staying in that mode of fear or just turning inward, the question arises of, what can I do about it? What can I do about it? Rather than just, complaining about the state of the world, if we just train our minds to ask ourselves, what can we do about it? And I ask people that as well. When people complain to me, including my son, by the way, try this with your kids. When they complain about something, you just kind of pause and look at them and say, and what are you going to do about it? And then it sort of reframes things, So on March 14th, when I was seeing this bubbling up of fear and anxiety in my community, I thought, well, what can I do about it? And that's when I just created the 2 Google Forms, Give Help and Get Help. And the intention was just to create a mutual aid community. And mutual aid's not something that I invented. It's been around for many, many years, many centuries. And it's just this beautiful idea and this concept that every single person in this world, regardless of your socioeconomic status, regardless of where you are or who you are, has something to give. And every single person has something that they need. And so if we can kind of create these circles of equity, then we can operate from a place of, or in a concept, which is really a mantra that drives me, which is enough is a feast. Enough is a feast. And if we can all just have enough and create this true equity in the world, what would that look like, right? And so through kindness, through acts of kindness, random acts of kindness, and simply by showing up, we were able to prove that diseases aren't the only thing that can go viral, that love can go viral, and hope can be viral, and kindness can be viral. And there's a lot of positive things in the world that can be viral too. And it's incredible. It's incredible to see how many micro communities around the world have formed. And I definitely want to give a shout out to one of our SIY teachers, Dominic, who was one of the first to create for my cohort 8, who was one of the first to reach out and say, I love this. How do I bring this to Spain? And so we did. And so that's, it's really, that's the point. It's like there was no hesitation. It was just, how do I get involved? What can I do? And he just showed up. And it's a perfect example of mindfulness in action, of kindness in action.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing. And thank you, Dominic, for that. And this idea that when we talk about practice, we don't just mean meditation. And I know, Sharon, in your book, you've actually alluded to that too, that this goes beyond meditation. When we talk about practicing kindness, we talk about actually taking action as well. But that perhaps these practices of mindfulness and loving kindness and meditative practices can enable that. So perhaps, I don't know if either of you want to share a little bit more about that. Please, go ahead.
Shelly?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, for me, the three areas where mindfulness helps to not only inform, but keep me, sustain my work is in that the first, of course, being stopping the reaction process and start choosing, right? Responding. It just helps me to widen the gap between what's happening in the world and my reaction to it, right? That default mode that we talked about, empathy to action. And the second thing is that I use mindfulness to really inform my work by not experiencing as often compassion fatigue and burnout, which is a very, very real thing, right? Ceaselessly fighting for a cause takes a toll on anyone. So by pausing to turn inward, I actually can help build resilience and refill this surge capacity that we all have. And the third thing is really sustainability. So for me, this is synonymous with what I keep talking about in terms of showing up. And here's the thing, I think that most activists and empaths are fueled by two really strong emotions, right? It's hope for a better future, but also feeling like this anger for injustice. And so anger is a powerful and inciting force, but it flames out. You can't sustain activists in the long term with anger. But contemplation gives me the room or an opportunity to really remember my deeper motivations. What is my deeper motivation? What am I really looking to do? And what I'm really looking to do is I'm looking for a way to live a moral life, and to leave this place better than when I got here. And so that's, it's just love-based activism. If all of our actions in this world, and if we just thought about it incrementally and we thought in terms of if only for today I was going to show up from a place that is heart-centered, what would that look like in all areas of my life? And it's amazing to see how that ripple effect really can continue to expand.
Really beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. And Sharon, I also want to offer a reflection along those lines. Shelly, it's the title of your book, right? Sit down to rise up, to stand up, rise up, right? And then also, Sharon, I know you said a phrase once that just has stayed with me for so long, which is that compassion is an emergent quality of mindfulness. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's another myth that we try to break through our understanding, and I think we think of compassion as a feeling, first of all, rather than as something bigger. Like I said, maybe just a recognition of inclusion, of the worth of somebody. That's not highly emotional, or maybe it is. It depends. And we also think of compassion often as kind of hierarchical, like I, whose life is so together, and bestowing this kindness on you way down there because your life's fallen apart, which mine never could. And so, of course, that's totally wrong anyway, because it's good. Which is why I think that exploration of vulnerability is also very interesting. So there are lots of things we can think about in terms of compassion, and I think the best understanding I've gotten of it personally is that it is an emergent property of how we pay attention. Are we really looking at that? I mean, I had this very funny experience with the book, because one of the aspects of loving kindness practice, which we did not particularly have time to do, is offering loving kindness to a neutral person, someone we don't especially like or dislike. We're kind of indifferent to them, and this is the person we tend to objectify or look right through, or We don't care about them much. And often it's a person who plays some role in our life. And it's suggested we choose someone who plays some role in our life because we're likely to see them now and then, which is another point about loving kindness meditation. You may not feel any great change when you're formally sitting every day, let's say every day, but in life, you'll find you're different. You're different with yourself when you make a mistake. You're different with this near stranger. You're different in a time of adversity. So we say choose someone that you're likely to see now and then who plays some role in your life. So I was reading one of the meditations out loud for this journalist, and they chose loving kindness for the neutral person. So I hear myself reading, like for 45 years, my colleagues and I have said, like the checkout person in the supermarket, the kind of person we're totally indifferent to, we couldn't care less about. They might as well be a piece of furniture. And I heard myself go, whoops, look at that. How do we think we get to eat? And what happens when we look at that person and realize this is a person with hopes and dreams and fears and, just like us. And if we do that, that sense of connection will be there. We don't have to force it or, and it's the same, going back to that earlier question about somebody we have adversity with, that we really don't like at all. You don't have to force yourself to like them, but sometimes you get a glimpse of the suffering they are in or the disconnection they must be working under to do the acts that they do, or just sometimes it's breathtaking to me, almost like that's what you want your life legacy to be, like you alienated everyone you could, or you hurt everyone you encountered. Like, really, that's what you think a human being is capable of? And so there is a kind of compassion that comes.
Mm-hmm. We have a couple of other questions as well about creating the conditions for compassion. There's one, two in particular I want to call attention to. One is from Ingrid, and the question is directed at you, Sharon, but Shelly, if you have perspectives as well. And the question is, what are some good tips to share mindfulness with others? Involving family and friends is definitely something I want to do and have not been successful.
Well, I think it'd be interesting to hear from Shelly on that one as well. I mean, usually what we say is really, because actually, of course you can't proselytize, but it's your living embodiment of whatever changes you go through that is interesting to people. And it's always usually better to describe your own experience than, like I was really perpetually afraid of public speaking. And then I found that doing this practice, I actually could do it, which happens to be true of me, so it's just a personal expression.
Yeah, and funny, very quick story is that, the name of our institute is Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute. We teach mindfulness and emotional intelligence, empathy, and compassion skills. And all the time I get the question, all over the world I get this question, this is really great, but what about my partner, spouse, lover, child, whatever? They really need this. My in-law really needs this. And I'm always like, wait, this is called Search Inside who? Right? And so the practice is one of self-reflection, and from there, inside out. Shelley, yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would say that in a practical sense, kind of bringing it back to SIY, the micro practices are something that resonates so much when I've taught, practicums and have gone through to teach and leave people with, and even Rich, attending some of the sessions that you did for our community, the comments that came back time and again were like, I don't know if I'm going to meditate, every day, but these micro practices, like I can really incorporate them into my life. So I think if we kind of begin small and we don't, I think a lot of us want to kind of like bring people to the well right away and like get them to drink the water. And I think it's okay to just, drip one drop at a time. Because again, just like kindness, acts of kindness, incrementally, it eventually starts to land in the right way, right? It creates that groove. And I think, just to echo what Sharon was saying, when you begin to seem different to the people around you, the way that you show up, I'm the same person, but I really am a very different person than I was 4.5 years ago when I was working in the corporate world. And, just people ask all the time, like, what are you doing different? Like, where can I get some of that? And that's your entree. That's your opportunity to sort of respond. So I think, just embodying it also makes a really huge difference.
Beautiful. We have another important question that I wanted to share that came in through here from Fernanda, which is, how do we work with the fight and flight response or the fear response in a kinder way when your environment poses all kinds of challenges? And to that, I would add, of course, we know, for example, here in the United States, Black and Brown communities have been disproportionately affected by the pandemic, and injustice also, right? Like, there are systemic issues. That's not a question, that's a statement of fact. There are systemic issues impacting different communities differentially. So how do you work through that with these practices when you face that in your environment?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start again. I would really like to hear from Shelly. And I think it's different aspects. One is recognizing that if we undertake these practices, it is a resource. It's about resilience. It's not about. It's difficult because the language is difficult. We say accept things. Well, what does that mean? Does it mean you just lie down and take it? Well, hopefully not. But I think of them largely as sources of resilience, and especially if you are in a situation where the world is telling a story about who you are and what you're worth that is not true, and maybe it's been your whole life that story has been laid on top of you, to have enough strength to kind of pause and not just take it in, to have the energy to respond, and I think, there a lot of practice, it sounds cerebral, but it is about our nervous system too. So it is restorative right there. And I think that's one of the things I really saw in my book with some of the many activists that I got to interview, is that a core revelation for each of them was, I'm worth something. The entire world is saying I'm not, or I shouldn't even get $15 an hour working this job, or it's okay that my colleagues work 40 hours a week and live in a homeless shelter, because we get paid so little. It's not okay. And that moment of like standing up and saying, I'm taking a stand on my worth, is, I think, part of what these practices reinforce for us.
Beautiful. Thank you. Well, I'm really consciously aware that we only have about a minute left. So we promised people for an hour here, and we could share so much more, but maybe I would just ask if there's any last thoughts, and then perhaps Sharon, you could end us with a brief practice as we close our time. So first of all, thank you both profoundly, deeply, on behalf of our community and the world, for the work you do, for the people that you are being in this world, and for our time together here. And then Shelly, first with you, and anything to add before we close?
Yeah, I definitely wanted to mention that as part of our sit down to rise up as the SIYLI community, we have created 2 unique microlinks for this community that live both on the Kindness Matters page and also on the pandemicoflove.com page. If you go to the partner page, you'll see the SIY logo, and you'll see a give help and a get help link. And so if you're interested in actually showing up for someone in a tangible way, we'll partner you up with a person that has a need that you can fulfill. Doesn't just have to be financial. And also, if you have a need, then just let us know what it is, and we will find somebody who can help to fulfill that need. So that's just a tangible way for our community here to show up in droves, and I love it. It's really the ripple effect.
Well, much love to you as well. For the participants, you'll see in the chat the links to where what Shelly is referring to. And then Sharon, if you could perhaps offer just some last words and or a practice.
Yeah, I think that my favorite word these days in these times is rest. And so I want to just offer us like 1 minute or less practice of just resting, because out of that we find that we are restored and we can act. So you can rest your attention on the breath, rest your attention in your body, in the heart space you may be feeling, but the word is rest.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody. We all wish you well. And onward. Let us be onward leading. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.